lateral side, toward the anterior lateral side here. So this orbital part or the larger part, it is present in lacrimal what? In lacrimal is present in the lacrimal fossa, and this lacrimal fossa is present where? In the anterior lateral part, of course. And where is the palpebral part? Palpebral part is present in lateral part of upper eyelid. The lateral part of upper eyelid, we got this palpebral part present. Right? That's about the gland. Lacrimal gland, then we said it is having ducts. The lacrimal ducts are there. Now overall, there are approximately, if I go with the numbers which are quoted in the book, there usually say there are 12 ducts are there in it. Out of those 12 ducts, around 4 to 5 ducts are coming from where? From orbital part. D parts directly are into the conjunctival sac. Because from the orbital part, we have 4 to 5 ducts, and the remaining, the larger number of ducts, that is 6 to 8 ducts, they are coming from the palpebral part. They are coming from the palpebral part. And there's an important clinical anatomy about regarding this, which I'll tell you at the end. And telling you about the lacrimal secretion here, almost around 1 milliliter of lacrimal fluid is produced per day. 1 ml lacrimal fluid or 1 ml of tears, you can say in simple word, are produced in a day, particular, one day. After lacrimal duct, function, I don't have to tell you what is the function of the tear. I mean, that's, you already know that what are the functions that it provides the nourishment to the cornea, it also for the emotional expression, it helps in the moistening of the cornea as well, bacterial function, bacterial lysosomal function bhi hote hain. So all these are the functions of the tear, which I don't have to tell you. But what I should tell you here is about the accessory lacrimal gland. Although we don't use this word very often, the accessory lacrimal gland, but yes, in a way they are accessory lacrimal gland which are present in the upper and the lower eyelid. We call them a gland of Cross. The gland of Cross. These gland of Cross, they are present in the upper and the lower eyelid. These are serous glands, so very, very small serous glands present very close to the fornix. You know what is the fornix? I said if this is an eyeball and if this is the eyelid which is covering it. Now imagine you're seeing the side here. If this is an eyeball like this in a side view and there's the eyelid which is covering it, let's say here. So this conjunctiva, which is a palpebral conjunctiva, this is a bulbar conjunctiva, and the point they're meeting with each other, that angle over there is a fornix. So if fornix se bahut pass hote hain, upper fornix and lower fornix se bahut pass hote hain these glands, and these glands are called as accessory lacrimal glands or the glands of Cross. So these basically are nothing but the small serous glands near conjunctival fornix. Near conjunctival fornix. Fornix or fornices, I'm talking about both upper and the lower eyelid. When the conjunctiva jump from the eyelid to the eyeball, or from, you can say, the lower part of the eyeball to the eyelid, that angle basically is a fornix, and that is where these small glands are opening. Just to tell you a little more detail here, that upper eyelid, दोनों eyelid में upper eyelid dominates in this. Actually upper eyelid is having around 35 to 40 glands. छोटे glands, small individual glands, 35 to 40 glands are there. Although lower eyelids are having very few compared to that. It's only 6 to 7 or 6 to 8 glands are present in the lower eyelid. So accessory lacrimal gland, all the time, gland of Cross, these are the serous glands only. Just like anywhere you have a serous gland, these are serous acini or serous glands which are present, having serous acini inside, and they're present in the upper eyelid and the lower eyelid, close to the fornix part, basically aiding to the additional secretion here. Before we go to the rest of the lacrimal apparatus, what is the arterial supply? What arterial supply we expect for the lacrimal gland? This is something we discussed in the orbit also. There is a lacrimal artery. Lacrimal artery supplies it, which is a branch of ophthalmic artery. And I hope you remember that ophthalmic artery is a direct branch of internal carotid. Venous drainage, ophthalmic veins. We've discussed about the ophthalmic veins also. Ophthalmic veins, superior and the inferior ophthalmic veins are there. Okay. The important thing is the nerve supply. Now, in this question, apart from lacrimal apparatus, there's something that examiner love to ask, and the reason I never discussed this topic with you in the initial part, when we were discussing in the first or second lecture of the head and neck, because we knew nothing about the facial nerve, we knew nothing about the sympathetic chain, so it was not wise to discuss this gland at that time. Now you know the sympathetic innervation as well as parasympathetic. I just have to remind you in this case. But a P-type nerve supply. When you look at the nerve supply to lacrimal gland, obviously we have a sympathetic nerve, we have parasympathetic nerve, and we have some sensory nerves also. How about we start with the simplest one? Sensory. Sensory nerve, which are carrying just general sensation from the lacrimal gland, pain and all that, they are carried by the lacrimal nerve. Carried by the lacrimal nerve, which is a branch of ophthalmic nerve. Now, point here is that lacrimal nerve is the only nerve which is reaching the lacrimal gland. When you look at the inside the orbit and you appreciate the lacrimal gland and you trace the nerves, the only nerve which is reaching the lacrimal gland is lacrimal nerve, which is a branch of ophthalmic. Now, my point here is whether it is parasympathetic nerve or sympathetic nerve, ultimately they will reach the lacrimal gland through this nerve only. Lacrimal gland is a branch of ophthalmic nerve. So basically, the function of lacrimal nerve is to carry the general sensation, the pain and all those sensations from the lacrimal gland. But this lacrimal nerve, it has to do an additional function, and that is to carry the sympathetic as well as parasympathetic fibers to the gland. The second type of innervation, let's talk about is the parasympathetic innervation. Now, I'm not going to discuss this entire parasympathetic innervation. This is something we've discussed in detail in the facial nerve. Facial nerve, remember, superior salivatory nucleus, inferior salivatory nucleus. We said lacrimal gland is supplied by the superior salivatory nucleus only. From the superior salivatory nucleus, facial nerve will come out. Facial nerve will give off a branch called as a greater petrosal nerve, goes into pterygopalatine ganglion. If you don't remember it, I suggest you to please go back and look at the facial nerve, and you'll find the entire parasympathetic secretion or innervation over there. Let me write in the flowchart manner. So the nucleus is basically superior salivatory nucleus. A part of superior salivatory nucleus is also called as lacrimator nucleus. Superior salivatory nucleus. The fibers of superior salivatory nucleus will go through the nerve called as nervus intermedius. But a nervus intermedius is nothing but the facial nerve only. It's a branch of the facial nerve. The sensory part of the facial nerve that is called as the nervus intermedius. This facial nerve at the bend, at the external genu, it gives off the greater petrosal petrosal nerve. Greater petrosal nerve forms the nerve to pterygoid canal or median's nerve. You already know that, and it is going to relay in the ganglion, and that ganglion is pterygopalatine ganglion. This pterygopalatine ganglion, and pterygopalatine ganglion is the place where it will relay. I hope yaad aa raha hoga beta, ye sab humne discuss kiya pterygopalatine ganglion. Now from the pterygopalatine ganglion to reach the lacrimal gland, what all has to be done? Pterygopalatine ganglion is topographically connected to what nerve? To the maxillary nerve. In the pterygopalatine fossa, it is topographically connected to maxillary nerve. There was a branch of maxillary nerve which was going toward the orbit, that was zygomatic nerve. That is zygomatic nerve. Zygomatic nerve gives off a branch called as zygomaticotemporal nerve. Zygomaticotemporal nerve. बेटा जिसको याद नहीं आ रहा होगा ये सब कोर्स, so please go back to the facial nerve right away and just look at that. Zygomaticotemporal nerve. Zygomaticotemporal nerve, it connects to what nerve? It connects to the lacrimal nerve. Ultimately, you have to connect to the lacrimal nerve, which is a branch of ophthalmic, if you want to reach the lacrimal gland, and that's how the parasympathetic fibers are going to reach the lacrimal gland. This is the parasympathetic pathway, and because of this reason only, as I said, हमने शुरू में कभी discuss किया, we never talked about this lacrimal gland in the beginning, because you got to remember this pathway. The facial nerve you should know about, then only this pathway makes sense. So superior salivatory nucleus, one of the, there are many nucleus for facial nerve, one of them is superior salivatory nucleus. Then through facial nerve it is carrying the preganglionic fiber. Pterygopalatine ganglion is the ganglion for the lacrimal gland. Then postganglionic fiber will go through maxillary nerve, zygomatic nerve, zygomaticotemporal nerve, and then finally goes into the lacrimal nerve and supplies the lacrimal gland. Sympathetic pathway, again you know it. The same facial nerve, maybe we have discussed the sympathetic pathway also, because nothing is going to change. The only thing is sympathetic pathway, guys, the fibers are coming around the plexus, around the internal carotid artery. Plexus around the internal carotid artery. So if you follow the same facial nerve that we discussed earlier, the third and the last pathway, the sympathetic pathway will also be covered in it. Well, for the sympathetic innervation कहाँ से start हो रहा है? Actually, I told you the first sympathetic nerve is coming from T1. So T1 is the nerve which will give a preganglionic fiber, which will ascend in the sympathetic chain and reach the superior cervical ganglion. Right? So preganglionic fiber start कहाँ से हो रहे हैं? Starting from T1. They start from T1. Goes into which ganglion? Superior. It reaches the superior cervical ganglion, which is our next topic. We'll talk about the sympathetic chain of the neck. So we'll talk about how exactly this ganglion and what it is doing. Superior cervical ganglion. But a superior cervical ganglion will give off what fiber? Post-ganglionic sympathetic fiber. So this is the point of relay. For the sympathetic nerve, this is the point of relay. The T1 nerve will go into the sympathetic chain and relay in the superior cervical ganglion. From superior cervical ganglion, then those grey ramus communicants will come out. That's a post-ganglionic fiber only. So post-ganglionic fiber will come out from the superior cervical ganglion, and what these post-ganglionic fibers will do, they will make sympathetic plexus around what artery? Internal carotid artery. Guys, middle ear, anterior wall of middle ear, carotid wall, having internal carotid artery, sympathetic plexus around the internal carotid artery. From the sympathetic plexus around the internal carotid artery, a nerve is given off. That nerve is what? Deep petrosal nerve. Greater petrosal nerve was parasympathetic. This is deep petrosal nerve, which is sympathetic. Now this deep petrosal nerve will also go through pterygopalatine ganglion. Obviously, it will also go into the pterygopalatine ganglion, but this being a sympathetic nerve, so obviously there is no relay there. So it has nothing to do with the ganglion. Relay ho chuka already. Relay is done in the superior cervical ganglion. It is simply going through the pterygopalatine ganglion, and the rest of the course is exactly same. It will follow the same thing only, guys. What? Zygomatic nerve, zygomaticotemporal nerve, lacrimal nerve, and then finally reaching the lacrimal gland. Whatever you just wrote in the parasympathetic pathway, the same stories here. It is also going to use the same nerves to reach the lacrimal gland. But you got to be careful that what is the origin of the parasympathetic and what is the origin of the sympathetic pathway, which I believe that you know it very well because we discussed cranial nerve quite well in the beginning itself. What I've seen is, this is again, I keep telling you all these common mistakes which I came across when I used to be examiner. That if you ask somebody about the innervation, that explain the innervation of the lacrimal gland, लोग parasympathetic innervation लिख देते हैं, sympathetic भूल जाते हैं. Just think of, okay, talking about innervation, we just have to write about the innervation which is helping the lacrimal gland to secrete the tear. So usually लोगों के दिमाग में parasympathetic secretion आता है बेटा. So when you think of any gland, you think about the sympathetic secretion, parasympathetic secretion, and sensory fibers also. What are the sensory fibers supplying it? So every time, although it's again a bit unlikely for other glands to be only the question to be asked on their innervation, if the question says secretomotor fiber, explain the secretomotor fiber, then only parasympathetic fiber has to be explained. But if the question says explain the innervation of a parotid gland or the innervation of the lacrimal gland or submandibular gland, you have to write about sympathetic, parasympathetic, as well as the sensory fibers which are supplying. Taking back to this diagram here, so we said we're done with this, the two part of lacrimal gland. We talked about the lacrimal duct. We said the things will come into the lacrimal, this conjunctival sac here. The conjunctival sac, which we said it is just present between the bulbar conjunctiva and the palpebral conjunctiva, which is covering the eyeball and covering the inner surface of the eyelid here. Let me just continue with that sequence. So continuing with the lacrimal apparatus, the next thing in the lacrimal apparatus is conjunctival sac. Just write one line this, that this conjunctival sac is present between palpebral and bulbar conjunctiva. Okay, after that it will go to what? Punctum. When punctum was simply the opening, guys. We have already labeled in the diagram, we don't have to write anything special about it. So the tear goes into the medial side, into the lacrimal punctum, and those punctums are leading to what? They are leading to the lacrimal canaliculi. Lacrimal canaliculi. This lacrimal canaliculi is opening into what? Lacrimal sac, behind the medial palpebral ligament again. The thing is, lacrimal canaliculi, if you just look at the diagram once again, we said it is having a horizontal part. It is first having a vertical part and horizontal part. Vertical part and horizontal part. Vertical part is just 2 millimeter long and horizontal part is 8 millimeter long. So canaliculi is totally 10 millimeter. So if you remember, the canaliculi is running like this. So this portion is just 2 millimeter. That is, the vertical part is just 2 millimeter, and this horizontal part is around 8 mm long. So 8 mm long. Opening where? In the lacrimal sac. Opening the lacrimal sac. The dimension of the lacrimal sac is the length into width. It is 12 millimeter long. It's 12 millimeter long and 5 millimeter wide. The lacrimal sac. And another important thing that you can write about lacrimal sac, and don't forget this part, that it is present behind what ligament? Medial palpebral ligament. It was situated behind the medial palpebral ligament. And finally, NLD. What is NLD? That is nasolacrimal duct. NLD, the nasolacrimal duct, which is 18 millimeter long. Which is 18 millimeter long. First of all, important thing about the nasolacrimal duct is direction, beta. What direction it is running in? What direction it is running in? Nasolacrimal duct, obviously it is running downward. Obviously it is running downward. But it is not only running downward. It is running downward, backwards, and laterally. So it is running like this. If I put my finger on the opposite side, in this way. So look at this. It is running downward, backward, and outside because it has to go toward the lateral wall of the nose. So it is running lateral also. Downward, backwards, and lateral. Direction of the nasolacrimal duct is obviously it is running downwards. It is running backwards and lateral. Downwards, backwards, and lateral. Downwards, backwards, and laterally. Where it is opening, we discussed in the nasal cavity, guys. Where it is opening, it opens in which meatus? In inferior meatus. It opens in the inferior nasal meatus, and it is guarded by a valve. There is a valve over there, we simply call it the valve, imperfect valve. It's not a completely perfect valve. That is called as a valve of Hassner. Hassner's valve or valve of Hassner is guarding it, which is an imperfect valve. It's not an exact valve which is having the valvular mechanism. We don't have it. It's simply a small membrane kind of thing which is covering the lower part of this duct. We call it valve of Hassner. So, but this is about the features of the lacrimal apparatus. Just be careful. Again, question padna about carefully whether the question is about the lacrimal gland or the lacrimal apparatus. If they ask the question on lacrimal gland only, a short note or something, just don't go beyond the gland. You don't have to tell about the conjunctival sac or punctum or canaliculi or nasolacrimal duct. If the question is on the lacrimal apparatus, then you have to describe all the 7 features, all the 7 parts of it. The clinical, if I tell you a little clinical here, lacrimal sac inflammation. If there is a lacrimal sac inflammation, that name given to that condition is called as a dacrocystitis. That is called a dacrocystitis. Lacrimal sac, not lacrimal gland. Lacrimal gland inflammation is called as a dacrocystitis. Another important clinical anatomy here is that I told you that the ducts which are coming in here. We have already discussed here, but let me just again go back to this diagram here. But lacrimal, if you look at the ducts which are coming from the deep part, they are also going through the superficial part and opening in the conjunctival sac. The one which are opening in the conjunctival sac, they're fine. But the some which are coming from the deep part are going through the superficial part and then entering here, or going through the palpebral part. If you remove the palpebral part of the lacrimal gland, it is equal to the removal of the entire gland. If you remove the palpebral part of lacrimal gland, it is equal to the removal of the entire gland only, because all the ducts will be compromised. The point here is, as all ducts passes from palpebral part of lacrimal gland, therefore, removal of palpebral part is equal to the removal of entire gland. Removal of the palpebral part is equal to the removal of the entire gland. And one more clinical anatomy that you should know here, that is called as epiphora. Excessive production. I mean, it's not excessive production actually. You will see when the lacrimal fluid is running on the cheek. If somebody is not crying, not emotional, or anything like that, but still the tear will keep coming on the cheek, or the eye always look wet. That is called as epiphora. So it's basically the lacrimal fluid over the cheeks. The lacrimal fluid which runs over the cheeks. Usually lacrimal fluid obviously should go toward the punctum, and then it goes toward the canaliculus and lacrimal sac, and it should go into the nasal meatus, inferior nasal meatus. But if you see that, especially chota bachcho and the newborn kids, they do have this epiphora. My son, he was having epiphora, and usually what they do in epiphora, they will, if the opening is at the time of the birth, the nasolacrimal duct, usually most of the people, the nasolacrimal duct is completely open. So canalization ho jata hai. In some people, the canalization of the lacrimal, nasolacrimal duct is not complete even after birth. So they usually just do a little puncture. It's not a puncture basically. They put a very fine needle inside the lacrimal punctum and canaliculi and open this nasolacrimal duct here. But it is not recommended. I would say why. I'm just saying this from the practical experience, because the people who undergo this, they might have this occlusion of the nasolacrimal duct again also. Although that is the only way you can open the nasolacrimal duct. So I said my son was also having this epiphora. So there are exercises also. They usually recommend to exercise very hard on the side of the nose here, like this. We have to exercise. We have to rub the side of the nose multiple times in a day. Or bachcho ke pasand nahi aata, they get really irritated. They usually cry also. But we still hung on to this. We did it for almost I remember it's a long time. It's 9 years from now. We did 25 days continuously, and that duct actually automatically opened later on. So that condition is called as epiphora, and where if there is any blockage in the nasolacrimal duct or in the punctum or in the canaliculi, that could be because of incomplete canalization. So that canalization can be actually made manually also. Maybe through exercises, or last resort, obviously, we have a little surgery. It's not even a surgery, actually, we just put a very thin wire in the lacrimal punctum and you open it up. Okay, so guys, this is all about the lacrimal apparatus. So we move on to one more topic for the day, and that is the cervical sympathetic chain.
चलिए सब लोग कितना बोल रहे हैं तो हम बड़े बैठे रहेंगे उन दसों को सहना की बात है क्या करना हाँ ये है कि अब आपके साथ है भाई आपके साथ भी नहीं बहुत काम है अब लोग है कि भाई हम लोग समय देंगे तो बिल्कुल सराहनीय करेंगे आपका भी भाई थिंकिंग सही वही वही नहीं वही हम कर रहे हैं हाँ हाँ वही हम भी कर रहे हैं कि मतलब उसमें है क्या मैं जाना है ये करना है चलो ये करें ये करें अरे बहुत अच्छे हैं क्या करते हैं अब यही समझिए अब आपको मैं बता रहा हूँ कि मैं जो प्रमाण पत्र देने के बाद कोई टाइप पर नहीं किया था वो जो डीओ ने वो आदेश नहीं हुआ था वो जो मैसेज किया था उसी को मैं अपने मेल पर भेज दिया अब मेरे से मैं डाउनलोड कर ये पीडीएफ को आप एडिट नहीं कर सकते लेकिन मैं पीडीएफ को भी एडिट कर देता हाँ जैसे इसका पीडीएफ हो गया इसका मतलब कोई अरे तो हो गया क्या ऐसे भाषा वाला है अब मैं बता रहा हूँ ना उसको मैं क्या क्या अपने मेल पर दिया है हाँ नहीं जाता नहीं भेजा खाली आपकी बुराई को करना तो उसको मैं मेल पर दे देता पीडीएफ अब पीडीएफ को पहले इतना दिमाग सब नहीं अच्छा चलाता है वही निकाल पाएगा मैं पीडीएफ को मेल पर ले गया मेल पर लेकर के डाउनलोड किया डाउनलोड करने के बाद वो एडिट का ऑप्शन आया फिर मैं उसको वहां से सेलेक्ट करके कॉपी करके उसको मैं न्यू वर्ड वर्ड फॉर्मेट पर लेके उसको नया पेज पर उसको पेस्ट कर दिया बस उसमें कर्सर क्लिक करने लगा एडिट होने लगा बस उसी को करके तुरंत क्या चीज हाँ अरे 20 नहीं 100 लाइन का अरे हमने इस पर ना बहुत गलती की है तब हमको ये मिल गया अरे यार तो हम जैसे करके कोई भी चीज 100 लाइन या 100 पेज का है ना हम उसको एडिट कर देते अपने ढंग से लिख देते उसी चीज को हम अपने ढंग से उसका बंद रहेगा एकदम सिक्योर रहेगा उसको खोल देते खोल करके हम अपने ढंग से आइडिया की
branch which contributes to what plexus? Pharyngeal plexus. But I told you when you think of any plexus, pharyngeal plexus, tympanic plexus, plexus is never complete without a sympathetic contribution. We generally think of plexus and we think of parasympathetic pathway, greater petrosal, deep petrosal, fine, but lesser petrosal and all. But pharyngeal plexus or any plexus, they also have a sympathetic contribution. So pharyngeal plexus is getting a contribution from cranial accessory via vagus, VAC, cranial accessory via vagus, but sympathetic nerves are also contributing to it, which is coming from where? Superior cervical. Okay. And then we have sympathetic plexus around the artery. Like if this is the internal carotid and let's say this is the external carotid, why both of them? We have sympathetic plexus present around both. So we have sympathetic plexus present around the external carotid artery. We have sympathetic plexus present around the internal carotid artery. Let us say this is external carotid and let's say this is internal carotid. External carotid artery is supplying the structures outside. So that's a sympathetic plexus which is present around the external carotid artery and must be supplying the structures which are present outside. The one which are in the reach of the external carotid artery. Internal carotid artery sympathetic plexus, let me take the important one. Internal carotid artery sympathetic plexus will keep the post-ganglionic sympathetic fiber. These are obviously post-ganglionic already, and they are going to supply important muscle. And one of the most important muscle to remember here is a dilator pupillae muscle. Dilator pupillae muscle is supplied by the sympathetic plexus present around the internal carotid artery. This is like more than enough to be remembered from the sympathetic superior cervical sympathetic chain. आपको बेसिकली बेटा तीन चीजें याद रखनी है इन द सिंपैथेटिक चेन. फर्स्ट, व्हेन यू लुक एट अ सुपीरियर सर्वाइकल गैंग्लियन, you have to think about that what is the location, because relation point of view the location is very important here. Second thing, which sympathetic ganglion is made up of which nerves are contributing to it. So it's like 4-2-2. First 4 goes to the superior, 5 and 6 goes to the middle, and 7 and 8 goes to the inferior. 4-2-2. Then gray nervous communicants, तो अब ऐसे समझ के 4-2-2. So superior cervical ganglion will give the gray nervous communicants to C1 to C4. Middle will give to the C5 and C6, and inferior 7, C7 and C8. Superior cervical ganglion is the one which is mainly giving the sympathetic plexus around the internal and external carotid artery. When it comes to the middle and inferior cervical ganglion, they are also forming sympathetic plexus, but not around the internal external. They are forming the sympathetic plexus around the branches of subclavian artery, like vertebral, inferior thyroid artery. तो नीचे की तरफ है, तो नीचे वाली arteries पे around sympathetic plexus बनाएंगे. So this diagram here tells you about the location of the ganglion, position of it, Gray ramus communicans and other branches. It contributes to pharyngeal plexus, it contributes to the superior cervical cardiac branch, which ultimately forms the cardiac plexus, and it also forms the sympathetic plexus around the internal and external carotid artery. Dilator pupillae supply is very, very important to be remembered. Sphincter pupillae is parasympathetic supply. Dilator pupillae is having a sympathetic supply. Okay, middle cervical ganglion, we've already done, guys. Middle cervical ganglion location, we already know it is present where? It is present in front of C6. It is present in front of the C6. One thing about middle cervical ganglion is, which I wanted to write it down as well. One important thing that you should note down about the middle cervical ganglion is, yes, we said it is present in front of transverse process of C6 vertebrae. And another important thing which will help you remember its connection is it is present just above. It is present just above inferior thyroid artery. It is present above the inferior thyroid. इसकी location ऐसी है कि inferior thyroid artery, you know, inferior thyroid artery is a branch of thyrocervical vein. So it is present just above the inferior thyroid artery. If it is present above the inferior thyroid artery, so obviously it will form the plexus around the inferior thyroid artery. So this will go in this way. Let me just draw. This is the middle cervical ganglion. That's a chain extending above, chain extending below, right? Now, first, same story, guys. It is giving the gray ramus communicants to which nerve? It is giving gray ramus communicants to C5 and C6. C5 and C6 go. It is giving what? Gray ramus communicants. Gray ramus communicants. I'm writing GRs. What else? I told you it is present just above what? It is present just above what artery? Inferior thyroid artery. It is present just above the inferior thyroid artery. So obviously it will make a sympathetic plexus around the inferior thyroid artery, and that's how it is going to reach the thyroid gland also. Sympathetic plexus around the inferior thyroid artery and reach the thyroid gland. And it also gives off a branch which is called as the middle cervical cardiac branch. Middle cervical cardiac branch. So, सब में मिलेगा. Superior cervical cardiac, middle cervical, and inferior will give the inferior cervical cardiac branch. We already discussed that in the sympathetic supply of the heart, that all this cervical sympathetic ganglion, they give the cervical cardiac branches. Middle cervical cardiac branch. That's simple. That is about the middle cervical ganglion. Now coming to the inferior. Again, this is important, guys. Inferior cervical ganglion. Inferior cervical ganglion. Location क्या थी? In front of transverse process of C7 vertebrae. In front of transverse process of 7 cervical vertebrae, C7 vertebrae. So most of the cases, now important thing here is, in most of the cases, this inferior cervical ganglion is fused with the first thoracic ganglion, and together they form a star-shaped ganglion called a stellate ganglion. So it's in the most of the cases I'm talking about. Generally, inferior cervical ganglion is fused with what? With first thoracic ganglion. With the first thoracic ganglion, and together they form a single ganglion which actually looks slightly like this, and the branches coming out gives it a star shape here. So we call it a stellate ganglion. Stellate ganglion. Together it's stellate ganglion. Okay. Now location is important. You know why location is important? Because you can think of what artery is close by. When you thought of the superior cervical ganglion, the artery which was in relation to them were the external and the internal carotid artery. So they form the plexus around them. Middle cervical ganglion is very close to the inferior thyroid artery, so it forms a sympathetic plexus around them. And this one, the inferior cervical ganglion or stellate ganglion, is very much at the root of the neck, where we have subclavian artery and the initial branch of subclavian artery. So subclavian artery and the vertebral artery, which is a branch of subclavian, will have their sympathetic plexus coming from the stellate ganglion. So again, to tell you about the connections here. So this is here, the stellate ganglion, and I'm going to draw the stellate ganglion like this because we have two connecting them together. It's the inferior cervical ganglion and it is connected to the first thoracic. So together it is stellate. Same story first of all, guys. Gray ramus communicants to which nerve this time? To C7 and C8. C7 and C8. Gray ramus communicants. Gray ramus communicants. Fine. Inferior cervical cardiac branch. Inferior cervical cardiac branch. The branch will come out of it. Inferior cervical cardiac branch will come out of it. T1 ganglion, especially T1, or I should say the stellate ganglion only, it gives off some sympathetic innervation to the esophagus. So we have some esophageal branches. The esophageal branches are there. And I told you again, arteries. Think of the artery close by. The artery close by here is a subclavian artery. If this is a subclavian artery, and one of the major branches of subclavian artery is the vertebral artery. I'm just taking the concerned one. This here is the subclavian artery. I'm going to tell you why it is important. Subclavian artery, and this here is the vertebral artery. So this information is very important. You know why it is important? Because now the sympathetic plexus, which is formed from here, it is seen around what artery? Around the subclavian artery, number one. And it is also seen around what artery? Around the vertebral artery. Therefore, why it is important? Because the sympathetic plexus will reach where? But a vertebral artery will go into cranial cavity. So if I ask you that in the cranial cavity, especially the posterior cranial fossa, the vertebral artery reach here. Vertebral artery goes to posterior cranial fossa. If I ask you sympathetic nerves which are reaching the posterior cranial fossa are coming from which ganglion? Then you will say inferior because they are coming along the vertebral artery. But the sympathetic nerves or sympathetic innervation which is reaching the anterior and the middle cranial fossa will be coming from superior cervical ganglion because internal carotid artery is reaching there. You getting my point now? Vertebral artery ultimately goes into posterior cranial fossa. So if I just try to ask you this question, that sympathetic innervation in the posterior cranial fossa is coming from which cervical ganglion? It is inferior because the artery close by is vertebral, so it will go along the vertebral artery. But the middle cranial fossa and anterior cranial fossa, it is dominated by the internal carotid. So sympathetic plexus in the middle and the anterior cranial fossa will come through the internal carotid artery. You know, there's one more thing to be remembered here. There's something called as an ansa subclavia. Just to finish off this thing, ansa subclavian, not ansa cervicalis, there is ansa subclavian. You know what is ansa subclavian? It is just a loop of a nerve which is winding around the subclavian artery and connecting the middle and inferior cervical ganglion. That's it. Now this is the superior cervical ganglion here. This here is the middle cervical ganglion, and let's say this is the inferior cervical ganglion like this. And here we have, let's say, the subclavian artery somewhere here. Well, this is subclavian artery. This is subclavian artery. So what I'm talking about is this loop which is connecting the middle cervical ganglion, looping around this subclavian artery and connecting to the inferior cervical ganglion. So it's just a loop of communication between the middle. It is a loop of communication between what ganglion? Middle cervical ganglion and inferior cervical ganglion, or you can say stellate ganglion. This is what is called as ansa subclavian. It is because winding around the subclavian artery, below the subclavian artery, so we call it ansa subclavian. Ansa subclavian. So what I've tried here is that I've tried to explain you the sympathetic chain individually, superior ganglion, middle ganglion, inferior ganglion individually. When you look at this picture in the neck region, आपको थोड़ा सा complicated लगेगा देखने, because imagine if I just join all the three diagrams together, which you can do, which you can very well do, then it will look a little complicated because all the three ganglions, what arteries close by, forming so many plexes, will be seen in here. So it's completely up to you. If you understood this topic, if you have it in your head, it's better to draw it collectively only. But if not, you definitely can draw all the three ganglions individually and talk about them. Right? So guys, this is about the sympathetic chain, the cervical sympathetic chain. Lymphatic drainage of H and F, head, neck, and face. Let me just go with some general consideration. General consideration. But general consideration, as I said, there are total of 400 to 500 lymph nodes. And I'll be writing for lymph nodes in the entire lecture. 400 to 500 lymph nodes in the body. Out of which 80 to 100 lymph nodes. This number may vary. Don't bother too much about this number. I just want to tell you so that you understand the importance. 80 to 100 are present in the head, neck, and face only. Head में तो होते नहीं, basically it's neck and the face. The lymph node we have. Now first understand whatever lymph nodes you come across. हमने जो भी lymph node head neck में discuss किए, mandibular, jugulo-digastric, jugulo-omohyoid, deep cervical, whatever. There's only lymph node, you heard of all those lymph nodes here. Ultimately, the point is that lymph from H and F, head, neck, and face, directly or indirectly, is going to drain into the lymph node which are called as deep cervical lymph nodes. Deep cervical lymph nodes. So lymph from the head, neck, and face, it's directly or indirectly is going to go into the lymph node which are called as the deep cervical lymph node. So whatever lymph node it is present, wherever the lymph is coming from in head and neck, ultimately जाना बेटा कहाँ पे? Deep cervical lymph node. Now from now onwards, I will call them deep cervical lymph node, DCLM. Short के लिए I'll call it DCLM. Now what are these deep cervical lymph nodes? But deep cervical lymph nodes are those which are present in a vertical chain along the internal jugular vein. We all know about internal jugular vein. So there are lymph nodes which are present around the internal jugular vein, around the carotid sheath. So those lymph nodes are called as deep cervical lymph nodes. So when I say deep cervical lymph node, what you need to think in your head is that these are the lymph nodes along what? Along internal jugular vein. So we're going to discuss that. Now, when you look at the head and neck, you basically can divide the lymphatic drainage of head and neck, or the lymph circle, the lymph nodes which are present in the head and neck, in basically three circles. What I'm saying is, first, if you think of the lymph nodes which are present very superficially in the head and neck, scalp was the first chapter I started with you, and I did not discuss the lymphatic drainage in the scalp. I told you that lymphatic drainage of scalp and the face we will discuss at the end here. Now it's the day. There is no lymph node in the scalp, and there's hardly any lymph node on the face. There are very few lymph nodes called as the buccal or facial, just very few here. So majority of the scalp, in fact all of the scalp and majority of the face, it drains the lymph downward like this into the lymph node which are present here in this region. Now some lymph nodes are here, we call them submental, submandibular, parotid, mastoid, occipital. Now look at the circle here. We have submental, submandibular, parotid, mastoid, and occipital. It is like a chain. It is like a circular chain of lymph node which is present around the chin region, chin and the base of the skull here, and that's why we call it a pericervical collar. We call it a pericervical collar, right? So what I'm trying to tell you here is, let us say, but this here is the pericervical collar. I will discuss this pericervical collar with you separately, but just for now, keep it in your head. The pericervical collar means all the lymph nodes which are present here along the base of the skull, I would say, below the mental region, below the mandibular region here, at the level of parotid, at the level of mastoid, occipital. You already know that is called the pericervical collar. Okay. With this pericervical collar, it is forming a ring which is called as the outer ring. We will be discussing this outer ring in absolute detail. The कौन-कौन से lymph node में कहाँ-कहाँ से lymph आ रहा है, so we will discuss that. So that is outer ring basically. Okay. Then there is an inner ring. What is this inner ring made up of here? Inner ring is made up of those lymph nodes which are present around the respiratory passage or the alimentary canal. Respiratory passage and alimentary canal. Think of the respiratory passage and alimentary canal, that is upper part of the esophagus or pharynx. So what are the lymph nodes? सबसे आगे क्या होंगे? Pretracheal, prelaryngeal. On the side we'll have paratracheal, and behind the pharynx will be what? Retropharyngeal. You heard all these names. So they are basically present around the respiratory passage and the alimentary canal. So this is the inner circle basically. So inner circle, inner ring or inner circle. I should call it circle actually. Ring goes with the word there. So I wanted to please change it to the inner circle rather than calling it a ring. Call it circle. So inner circle are those lymph nodes which are present. They are present around. They're present around the alimentary canal and respiratory passage. As I said, we will be discussing them also separately, so don't worry about it. You already have a little idea that pretracheal, prelaryngeal, paratracheal. The tracheal side known as paratracheal, and the one which are behind the pharynx, that will be called as the retropharyngeal lymph nodes. Okay. Apart from that, there is another circle which is over the other end, and that circle which is more inside is basically submucosal lymph nodes. Now, when you think of submucosal lymph nodes present in a circle, what comes to the mind? Waldeyer lymphatic ring. Guys, tongue posterior 1/3 is having lingual tonsil. On the sides we have palatine tonsil. Where the eustachian tube is opening, that is called the tubal tonsil. And on the wall of the pharynx we have what? Pharyngeal tonsils. So होगा ना पूरा ring. If you look at this entry of the oral cavity and the nasal cavity, if you go at the very much posterior part of the oral cavity and nasal cavity, so you have a circle over there in which which the lymphoids are present just below the mucosa only. So we call them submucosal this lymphoid tissue, which is forming a ring called the Waldeyer lymphatic ring. Waldeyer lymphatic ring means lingual tonsil, palatine tonsil, tubal tonsil, and pharyngeal tonsil. So that is also there. So I would say, apart from that, let me just use a different color for this. There's another circle inside. There's another circle inside, and this another circle here is the submucosal lymphoid tissue. And when we say submucosal lymphoid tissue, we are talking about what ring? Waldeyer. Waldeyer's lymphatic ring. That's why I did not use the word ring over there. This is called the Waldeyer's lymphatic ring. Waldeyer's lymphatic ring. Okay. So now at least we have it in mind that lymph nodes or lymphatic collection in the head and neck, basically three is represented. The outermost is present here only. That is called what? Pericervical collar. Then the one which is slightly inside is around the trachea, around the esophagus. That is the one. And the one which is present just deep with the mucosa only. That is Waldeyer lymphatic ring, which is made up of lingual tonsil, palatine tonsil, and tubal tonsil, etc. Point here is whatever lymph is coming to the pericervical collar or around this inner circle or in the Waldeyer lymphatic ring, where will it go? Ultimately, all the lymph has to go into what? Into the deep cervical lymph node. They all have to go into the deep cervical lymph node. Now, where is deep cervical lymph node? If I have to show in this picture, but a deep cervical lymph node, we said they are present around what? Around the internal jugular vein. Let us say this is the internal jugular vein here. Let me draw it on both the sides. And you will find some lymph nodes which are present around or along the internal jugular vein. So this is internal jugular vein. And these lymph nodes, this entire set of lymph node which is present here around the internal jugular vein, this is what we call as what? Deep cervical lymph node. That is a deep cervical lymph node. Now look at my arrows here. It is very clear that pericervical collar, there is no sense that pericervical collar will drain into the inner circle. Pericervical collar, what will it do? It will drain the lymph into what? Into the deep cervical lymph node, whether it is coming from here and there. I'm just drawing on one side only. Let's say this is a pericervical collar draining into it. Same inner circle will also drain into the deep cervical lymph node. Ultimately, now the submucosal lymphatic ring, Waldeyer lymphatic ring, may directly or indirectly again has to come into the deep cervical lymph node. So some might go directly like this, and some might go to inner ring and then drain into it. Some might go to the inner circle and then drain into it. But ultimately, lymph comes to what point? To the deep cervical lymph node. Now, we said deep cervical lymph node are present along the internal jugular vein. So, we have upper group, lower group, which I will discuss with you. Ultimately, from the deep cervical lymph node, whatever the deep cervical lymph nodes are, we will discuss that. The lymph will go to the trunk, which is called the jugular trunk. Jugular trunk. We have a right and the left jugular trunk. What jugular trunk? It's a small lymphatic trunk present on the right and left side. So, all the lymph from the deep cervical lymph node goes into the jugular trunk. And the fate is jugular trunk of the right side and the jugular trunk of the left side are having different fate. The jugular trunk of the right side is going to drain into the duct, which is called as the right lymphatic duct. And on the left side, I hope you remember in the thorax we discussed, on the left side, it will drain into the largest lymphatic duct called as a thoracic duct. Whether it is a right lymphatic duct or thoracic duct, they are draining at the junction of internal jugular and subclavian vein. They are draining at the junction of internal jugular or subclavian vein. Let me just quickly show you one picture here for how the jugular trunk will look like, and then I will come back. Look at this picture. Look at this picture. Don't try to focus on the lymph node. Forget about what lymph nodes are those. I'll tell you that. But if you look carefully, can you see a small trunk present over there? This trunk here. This trunk is called the jugular trunk. That's a left jugular trunk, and you can see it is going into the thoracic duct. Just before the thoracic duct enters at the junction here, this left jugular trunk is draining in here. The same story will be on that side. That is, we have right lymphatic trunk on that side. It will be draining at the junction of right lymphatic trunk. So keep this picture in front. And just give me a very quick feedback here, because you will realize that this is the most important part here. Did you understand this part? That when you look at the lymph nodes present, we have a pericervical collar which is outside. Then we have a circle inside which is called as the inner circle, which is a lymph node present around the trachea and esophagus. Uske bhi andar we have lymph node which are present deep with the mucosa, that is a Waldeyer lymphatic ring. And ultimately, whether it is from the outer ring or inner ring or the innermost ring, that is a Waldeyer ring, the lymph is going to go into what? The deep cervical lymph node. Deep cervical lymph node drains downward into the jugular trunk, and jugular trunk goes into the right lymphatic duct and thoracic duct. Because if you understand this part here, now your head will work in this direction. If I talk about, okay, now let me just give you one example. If I say tip of the tongue, if you remember guys, we discussed that tip of the tongue is draining into submental lymph node. Now you can work around it. Okay, tip of the tongue goes into submental lymph node. Submental lymph node is a pericervical collar. Pericervical collar, obviously, lymph will go ultimately into what? Deep cervical lymph node. Then from deep cervical lymph node goes into the trunk, and then trunk goes into the thoracic duct. Let us take all these parts one by one. Let's talk about the deep cervical lymph node. First, we talk about in detail about this. Then we talk about the pericervical collar. We talk about the inner circle, and we talk about the submucosal lymph node. And once you know about the details of all these, then you can collectively think of the lymphatic drainage of the entire head and neck by yourself. अगर आपको किसी organ का, किसी structure का, if you don't remember the lymphatic drainage, you can use this knowledge which you gain in this chapter, and you can write the lymphatic drainage by your own itself. First, let us go with the deep cervical lymph nodes. Now, what you already know about deep cervical lymph nodes are that they are present along the internal jugular vein. Fine. If they are present along the internal jugular vein, they are present actually in two groups. Which points let me write for you. First of all these deep cervical lymph nodes, they are present along internal jugular vein. But internal jugular vein is deeply placed, external jugular vein is superficially placed. So when I say the word deep cervical, obviously internal jugular vein should come to your mind, not external jugular. So they are present along the internal jugular vein, and all these are not visible because they are covered by sternocleidomastoid. Here is a huge muscle, sternocleidomastoid here, which is covering the internal jugular vein. External jugular vein is outside the sternocleidomastoid, internal is inside. So that is why we are not able to see the internal jugular vein much. So these lymph nodes are not very well visible until and unless our sternocleidomastoid go remove her. The cervical lymph node, they are broadly, or mainly I should say, divided in two groups. One group which is present, the upper group. In some books we simply will say upper group only. And then we have a lower group, and we have to understand this thing very well in detail. Upper group obviously must be present in the upper part of the neck, lower group is present in the lower part of the neck. Obviously along the internal jugular vein only. Now the most important upper group of deep cervical lymph node is called as jugulo-digastric lymph node. Jugulo-digastric lymph node, अलग ही दिखाई देता है, it's very big in size compared to the small lymph node we have. And lower group, the main lymph node over there is called as the jugulo-omohyoid lymph node. Jugulo-digastric and jugulo-omohyoid. Well, the word jugulo is common over there. Why? Jugular vein. They are present along the internal jugular vein. So the word is jugulo here. The next word is giving you the hint that which muscle they are in close relation to. The The first one is in close relation to the posterior belly of digastric, and the second one is in close relation to the intermediate tendon of omohyoid. That's why the name is jugulo-digastric and jugulo-omohyoid. And you know, some of the jugulo-omohyoid lymph node, I should not say jugulo-omohyoid, the lower group. Lower group main is what jugulo-omohyoid, but we have some lower group lymph node displaced more inferiorly. We have upper cervical, deep cervical, we have lower deep cervical, and then we have lower deep cervical lymph node, which is jugulo-omohyoid, but some of the lower deep cervical lymph node are also shifted downward. So we have displaced lower group also. So there's another group, another set of lymph node, another important set of lymph node that you will see, which is displaced slightly below, and that is, you've heard of the name for called a supraclavicular lymph node, and it is important. Again, the name says supraclavicular lymph node is also, it is present above the clavicle, and it is also deep cervical lymph node. It is also in close relation to the jugular vein and all. That is supraclavicular. Lower group, that is also in the lower group. Okay. First, let's find out the location, because until unless you have location clear in your head, then it will be difficult to understand how lymph is draining into them. So the diagram which I made you draw like hundreds of times in head and neck, this is the base of the skull. That is external acoustic meatus. This is mastoid process, and here's the occipital loop. This is the anterior midline beta, and this here is the posterior midline. And let's say this is the manubrium, this is the clavicle. Stay with me in this, right? As I said, obviously, talking about the deep cervical lymph node, they are in relation to the internal jugular vein. So let me put that here. Internal jugular vein. It comes down like this, deep to the sternocleidomastoid, which let's say is not here. I'm not drawing the sternocleidomastoid. Let me just go with this here. So obviously, the vein here is, try to label it where I'm doing so that there is no overlapping. This is internal jugular vein. Now, internal jugular vein is quite deeply placed, and you already have an idea about how the triangles of the neck are formed. But the muscle which is crossing it here will be the posterior belly of digastric one. The muscle that you will see, this is the anterior belly of digastric, and this is the posterior belly of digastric, like this. As you can see, the posterior belly of digastric is crossing it. Similarly, this is superior belly of omohyoid, and then we have an intermediate tendon from where the inferior belly of omohyoid will start. The superior belly of omohyoid, and that is inferior belly of omohyoid. So that basically is an intermediate tendon in between the two. Let me just try to give it a green color here. That is an intermediate tendon present. Just one tributary of internal jugular vein which I want to show you here is the facial vein. But this is a carotid triangle. This triangle over here is a carotid triangle. You very well know this. So but this here is a facial vein which is draining into the internal jugular vein. We've discussed that also. We know that facial vein by the help of by the mean of common facial vein actually, it drains into the internal jugular vein. So what vein is that? This one is the posterior belly of digastric. I'm just writing the muscle which I need. Posterior belly digastric, and this muscle here is the basically intermediate tendon. This is intermediate tendon of omohyoid. Intermediate tendon of omohyoid. See, where are your two main lymph nodes are present here? Main lymph node, like I just for the fun sake I used to call them JD and John. JD and John. JD and John. JD, jugulo-digastric. John, jugulo-omohyoid node. So jugulo-digastric and jugulo-omohyoid node. So JD and John. Where the JD and John are residing, the two deep cervical lymph node, Mr. JD are residing here. Look at this triangle which is formed here. Can you see that? This triangle which is present between the posterior belly of digastric, internal jugular vein and facial vein. This is the site where Mr. JD lives. This is jugulo-digastric lymph node. Where is John residing? John, that is jugulo-omohyoid lymph node, is residing on the internal jugular vein. It is present superficial to internal jugular vein, just above the intermediate tendon of omohyoid, just above the intermediate tendon of omohyoid, that is jugulo-omohyoid node. That's the location of the JD and John. Jugulo-digastric is present in that triangle that you're looking at here. John is residing on the internal jugular vein, superficial to internal jugular vein, and just above the intermediate tendon of omohyoid. And then we said that that is the upper group, obviously, and this is the lower group of lymph node here. Now, when I'm saying group, that is not the only lymph node we have. There are other lymph nodes also present in this region here. Small lymph nodes are there. There are also deep cervical lymph node, but we usually don't talk about them because there's no special name given to them. That's a major one. That's a main lymph node in the upper deep cervical group. This is a main lymph node in the lower deep cervical group. And then we have a displaced lower deep cervical lymph node which are present above the clavicle, and we call it supraclavicular lymph node. Just above here, that is supraclavicular lymph node. Supraclavicular lymph node. The location is very, very important. Why location is important? And I want you to understand this from this picture itself, because we keep writing about the lymphatic drainage of certain structures, and I know that people try to mug it up. They just take it as an organic process. Give us Ratna is for lymphatic drainage. No, you should not. See, whatever lymph coming to the jugulo-digastric lymph node, wherever it is coming from, we'll see it is coming from different region here. Ultimately, jugulo-digastric lymph node will drain the lymph downward into which one? JD will drain into John only, and John will drain into supraclavicular, or the supraclavicular will join with the John. Whatever, like anything is possible here. So this jugulo-omohyoid, it can drain into the supraclavicular, or sometimes I can say this John is going downward, and the John will join it. It's like the John is going downward to drain into the lymphatic trunk, and the supraclavicular will join it as well. Look at these, let me just put a color for this. Look at these arrows here, which will help you understand that how exactly ultimately all the lymph is reaching to its destination. Location is important, but location is very important. Where is JD? Where is John? JD is present, that is jugulo-digastric is present in the triangle between the posterior belly of digastric, internal jugular vein and facial vein. Let me label that for you. This is the facial vein here. Although it is a common facial vein, but you can simply call it facial vein. And jugulo-omohyoid node is present above the intermediate tendon of omohyoid, superficial to the internal jugular vein, and then supraclavicular is obviously just above the clavicle. That is supraclavicular. So let's talk a little more about that where they're getting the lymphatic drainage from. JD and John which lymph nodes are draining. So I hope you're done with this diagram. Let me just move from here. Jugulo-digastric lymph node. Few things about JD, guys. I don't have to tell you the location. You can see the diagram only. I don't have to repeat that. Important thing is in the jugulo-digastric lymph node, afferents. Afferents in the jugulo-digastric lymph node is mainly coming from palatine tonsil and posterior part of tongue. Palatine tonsil and posterior part of tongue. If you go back into your notes, if you go back to the palatine tonsil or you go to the tongue wala chapter, you will see that the lymph node in which they are draining is the jugulo-digastric. Palatine tonsil is directly draining into the the jugulo-digastric lymph node. Let me just tell you one picture, guys. One thing here. Palatine tonsil, beta, this picture, all of you. present in the Voltaire ring. That means palatine tonsil must be somewhere here, let's say. And I told you that there are chances that this ring, this Voltaire lymphatic ring, either indirectly or directly can drain into the deep cervical lymph node. That is what you're seeing here. Palatine tonsil directly drain karta hai into the jugular-digastric lymph node, and that is the reason. Because it is receiving the lymph from the posterior part of tongue, but yes, it is mainly receiving the lymph node from the tonsil, from the palatine tonsil. That is why the jugular-digastric lymph node, it is also known as principal. It is also known as the principal node of tonsil, of palatine tonsil. Question पूछते हैं, it's a 1 mark question. It could be an MCQ also. It is also called as the principal node of the tonsil, principal node of palatine tonsil. Make sure write palatine tonsil. ये तो afferent. Afferent comes into what? Afferent, that means the lymph which is coming into the jugular-digastric. Well, what about efferent? The efferent. Well, do I have to tell you the efferent, guys? जरूरत नहीं बताने, you know. Efferent will go into what? नीचे तो जाना ना. Efferent will go into the jugulo-omohyoid or into the supraclavicular. So in simple word, the efferent will go into what? It will go into the lower deep cervical lymph node. It will go into the lower deep cervical lymph node, whether it is jugulo-omohyoid or it is supraclavicular. Right? Clear? चलिए आगे चलते हैं. JD से आते हैं जॉन पे. Jugulo-omohyoid node, jugulo-omohyoid lymph node or jugulo-omohyoid node. What about the jugulo-omohyoid lymph node? It receives afferent. Location आपको already मालूम है. Afferent. The lymph is coming into the jugulo-omohyoid lymph node directly from tongue. And that to major anterior two-third of tongue. That anterior two-third of tongue, major lymphatic drainage of tongue is into the jugulo-omohyoid. I'm not saying that they are receiving the lymph only from the tongue, directly from the tongue and indirectly from other areas also. Directly from the tongue, and it is also receiving lymph indirectly. It is receiving lymph indirectly from all the lymph nodes which are present here. Submental lymph node, submandibular lymph node, jugulo-digastric. We just said jugulo-digastric. That is upper deep cervical lymph node. So it is receiving lymph indirectly from the submental. I tell you why I'm saying submental, submandibular, and what? And upper deep cervical lymph node. That is jugulo-digastric lymph node. So directly from the organ, directly from the structure, that is directly coming from the tongue also, or indirectly we are like from other lymph nodes. Indirectly that means from other lymph nodes only, from submental, submandibular, and just we saw from the jugulo-digastric also. That is the efferent into the jugulo-omohyoid. What about the efferent? The efferent which will come from here, but this ultimately the efferent from the jugulo-omohyoid is going to make what? Jugular trunk. And you know what is the fate of jugular trunk? Jugular trunk is going to go into the thoracic duct or it will go into the right lymphatic duct. Okay. One more thing we said that these lower group of lymph nodes, the lower group of lymph node, they have another one. They have a displaced lower group which is called as a supraclavicular. So let me just write it so that there is no confusion here. Additional lower deep cervical lymph node. Additional, apart from the jugulo-omohyoid, additional lower deep cervical lymph node, that is supraclavicular lymph node. Again, you know the location, guys. Supraclavicular lymph node, it is present just above the clavicle. That's why I call it supraclavicular. Supraclavicular triangle के अंदर present होता है. And one of the supraclavicular lymph node, there are many, like there are multiple, there are like more than, it's not like one lymph node, there are multiple lymph nodes present here in this region. But one of the supraclavicular lymph node, one of them is called as the scalene lymph node. This is important, guys. Let me highlight this. There's a scalene lymph node. This scalene lymph node, it is called a scalene because it is present in front of scalenus anterior. It is present in front of the scalenus anterior muscle, so we call it scalene lymph node. Now, it's important here why I'm stressing so much on the scalene lymph node, because the scalene lymph node is called as the Werkos lymph node. Werkos lymph node. People call it Werkos, we call it Werkos, whatever. नाम है जैसे मर्जी बोलो. Werkos lymph node or Werkos lymph node. And you know why this is so important? The scalene lymph node is so close to the termination of the jugular trunk. It is very close to the termination of the jugular trunk here. Carcinoma of the stomach. The carcinoma of the stomach. If there is a cancer of the stomach and there's a embolization, you know, if that cancer cell, they get into the thoracic duct, they run into the thoracic duct and they can actually reach the junction. They will reach the junction, and when they reach the junction over there, they will block the thoracic duct here. अगर बेटा thoracic duct block हो गया, if the thoracic duct is blocked where it has to go and drain over there, then the lymph nodes which are going to drain into the thoracic duct will enlarge हो जाएंगे because there will be backflow of the lymph node, and the closest to them is which one? The left scalene lymph node. So in case of carcinoma, when the stomach cancer का metastasis होता है, जो फैलना शुरू करता है, so stomach cancer cells, the embolism of the embolic plaque of the stomach cancer cells will go into what? Into the thoracic duct, and it will plug the thoracic duct. बंद कर देगा thoracic duct की opening. When the thoracic duct opening is closed, the lymph node which is closed to it will have a backflow. On backflow की वजह से they will get enlarged, and this is the scalene lymph node which will get enlarged, and we call it the Werkos lymph nodes. What is a Werkos lymph node? So this probably could be the first lymph node in case of the stomach cancer, in case of metastasis of the stomach cancer, not the stomach cancer only. In case of the metastasis of the stomach cancer, it will be enlarged here. Werkos lymph node. And when I say Werkos lymph node, I'm especially talking about which one? I'm talking about the left one, not the right one, because obviously stomach is draining toward the left side here. So this is the left scalene lymph node which is draining. Okay, so this is about the JD and John, the jugulo-digastric and the jugulo-omohyoid. Jugulo-digastric, if I just tell you one thing once again, that main lymph node of the palatine tonsil, they will receive, jugulo-digastric will receive lymph from many other lymph nodes, but mainly from the palatine tonsil, directly from the palatine tonsil actually. So we call them the principal lymph node of the palatine tonsil. अगर palatine tonsil की surgery करनी है, if the palatine tonsil is affected with a cancer or something, then you have to remove the jugulo-digastric lymph node here. If there is a carcinoma of the tongue, if there is a tongue cancer, in case of tongue cancer, you have to remove the jugulo-omohyoid lymph node because the tongue is directly draining into this jugulo-omohyoid. If it is anterior to the tongue. Okay. This is about the deep cervical lymph node, guys. I have to take you back again and again here. I hope you understood this thing. That this is jugulo-digastric and jugulo-omohyoid. That's how the lymph is going to come into it. Now, where the lymph is coming from? Pericervical collar and then inner ring also. So, pericervical collar रहता है. Pericervical collar, I told you lymph nodes are present like submental, submandibular, all those lymph nodes are there. So let me just try to work your head around these lymph nodes which are present in this region here. After deep cervical, I'm coming back to what circle? Outer circle. We're going to 7:30 for sure. Outer circle. But outer circle is nothing but the pericervical collar. Now, first let's find out that lymph node कहाँ present है and what are their names and where they're going to grow. Where they're going to drain. मैं थोड़ा उल्टा चल रहा हूँ topic के अंदर. In books they start talking about the lymphatic drainage ऊपर से नीचे की तरफ. I'm going in a reverse direction, which basically will give you a better orientation because once you understood the jugulo-digastric, jugulo-omohyoid, now understand that jugulo-digastric and jugulo-omohyoid are receiving lymph from which lymph node in this region here, and then we'll talk about these lymph nodes will receive the lymph from which different part of the face and the scalp. Here is the auricle for the reference. Pericervical collar, which is present around here. The pericervical collar lymph node we have present in the submental triangle, that is a submental lymph node. Then we have submandibular lymph node and lymph nodes. Actually, it's not that we only have one lymph node. I'm just drawing one for the reference. Submandibular will be there. We have lymph node which are present in front of the auricle. In front of the auricle is what? Parotid gland. So we can call them pre-auricular or parotid lymph node. The one which are present behind the ear are post-auricular or simply mastoid. Mastoid को speech होगा बेटा, यहाँ पे we have mastoid lymph nodes. And then lymph node which are present along the posterior part in the occipital triangle, actually very much close to the occipital bone. That is occipital lymph node. This entire circle is called the pericervical collar. So lymph node in here are, we got submental. Just make sure label in the upper part only. This is submandibular. This one here are the parotid. These are present in relation to the mastoid process, so we call them mastoid lymph node. And obviously these are the occipital lymph nodes. Submental, submandibular, parotid, mastoid, occipital, they are the one which are called the pericervical collar. So actually there are no lymph node present on the scalp and hardly any lymph node on the face. So majority of the lymph node are present around this region. That's why the name is pericervical. Because we still have to discuss that these pericervical lymph nodes are receiving the lymph from where? Where this nose is draining into what, and upper lip where, lower lip where, scalp where, we still have to discuss that. But before that, how about we understand that whatever these lymph nodes or wherever they are receiving the lymph from, which lymph node below, which deep cervical lymph node they are going to drain into? Well, which deep cervical? You already know the group. I'm just using a different color, or let me not use a different color in fact. But the main lymph node here is a jugulodigastric. There we have it. This is jugulodigastric. JD is here, and John is below. There is jugulo-omohyoid. And what are the one? Supraclavicular. Writing in short here, there is JD, there is jugulo-omohyoid, and there is supraclavicular. You know it, right? Let's just giving a different color here so that remember these are the deep cervical lymph node. So first we need to understand that this lymph is going to come into which one here? First of all, submental lymph node. Submental lymph node are going to go directly. Wrote that also. हम लिखा भी बेटा submental के बारे में यहाँ पे. We said jugulo-omohyoid. Jugulo-omohyoid is receiving directly from submental and submandibular. Submental and submandibular directly receive करता है. So this one, submental lymph node are going to drain the lymph directly into jugulo-omohyoid, and this jugulo-omohyoid is also receiving the lymph from where? From the submandibular also. You already talked about. ये लिखा हुआ है. They also receive the lymph from the submandibular also. Okay. What else? Submandibular lymph node. Look at this बेटा. Submandibular lymph node also drains lymph partly into what? Jugulodigastric. फर्क नहीं पड़ता because ultimately from jugulodigastric it will come into jugulo-omohyoid only. But yes, some directly into, some goes into the jugulo-omohyoid and some goes into the jugulodigastric. No confusion there. Parotid lymph node are going to go into what? Jugulodigastric. Mastoid lymph nodes are also going to go into jugulodigastric, but not occipital. Occipital lymph node are the one which will keep running behind the sternocleidomastoid and will go directly into the supraclavicular lymph node. They go directly into the supraclavicular lymph node. That's one interesting fact here, that they go into the supraclavicular lymph node here. Supraclavicular. Okay. Understand one more thing here. When I say pericervical collar, I'm talking about the lymph node which are arranged in a circle around here. But again, we have some lymph node from this region which are displaced downward and upward. Some lymph nodes are displaced downward and upward. Like there are some lymph node, like there's a lymph node here called a submandibular lymph node. So we've displaced submandibular lymph node above here in this region. We call it buccal lymph node. So buccal lymph node अलग से कुछ नहीं. Buccal lymph node is just a displaced submandibular lymph node only. We have a parotid lymph node. We have a parotid lymph node which is displaced downward. So the parotid lymph node which is displaced downward is present in the neck, superficial to sternocleidomastoid, and we call it a superficial lymph node of the neck. Superficial lymph node of the neck, or superficial cervical lymph node of the neck here. Okay. What is that? These are just displaced lymph node. I will tell you about the displaced lymph node and we'll add something more to this diagram here later on. But I hope this part is clear till now. I hope you understand jugulodigastric and jugulo-omohyoid. You also understand the story that this lymph node is going to drain downward only. Make sure remember that jugulo-omohyoid receives from submental and submandibular directly. Submandibular drains into the jugulodigastric also and jugulo-omohyoid also. Then parotid goes to the jugulodigastric, mastoid goes to the jugulodigastric, but the occipital one, it runs behind, the lymphatic runs behind the sternocleidomastoid, and they ultimately come and drain into the supraclavicular group of lymph node. Right, clear here? So I'll tell you in more detail about the pericervical collar. So I'll give you very quick feedback in the group that if you understood this, now we'll understand all these pericervical collar, that where they are receiving the lymph from, which one is from the nose, pharynx, where they're all coming from. So later half of the lecture, I'll discuss that. We saw that where the drainage is going into. So let's talk about that these lymph nodes which are present here in the pericervical collar, face, scalp, ear, all these, which part of the lymph node they're going to drain into. Now, to understand the pericervical collar, I want you to understand one diagram from the front here, and I want all of you to draw it like this. Try to draw it more toward the left side of the page. The face, what is the Karnanavas auricle? Okay, now ask me to, when you're looking from the front, the lymph node I'm talking about in this here is submental, submandibular, and parotid lymph node. When I turn my head, then I will be able to appreciate the posterior auricle, or you can say mastoid and occipital here. So right now my focus is the three set of lymph node here: submental, submandibular, and parotid. This block-like area, which is here, as well as tongue bar nikali, but it is not tongue actually. It is just I'm highlighting this block-like area here, which includes the lower lip. Just mark it very carefully. Which includes the lower lip, chin region, middle of the chin region. And if I think from in the same direction inside, what is exactly in the same direction? This what I've highlighted here is the chin, the middle part of the lower lip, And if I go inside, what you'll have, you have the floor of the mouth will be there. Incisors, the gums of the lower incisors will be there, and tip of the tongue, because tip of the tongue is touching the incisors. All these are going to drain to which lymph node? The submental lymph node. So this is the region, beta. This is the region. Let me start from here only. And as I said, just try to write my way I'm writing so that you can save the space. Tip of tongue, the lymph from the tip of tongue, floor of mouth, lower gums to incisor के सामने, the one which are in front of the incisors, lower gum, central part of lower lip, and also what? And also chin. Central part of lower lip and chin. They are all draining into the lymph node. What is the lymph node in this region? That is a submental lymph node. One of the lymph nodes of the pericervical collar, that is submental lymph node. इसको ऐसे draw करना कि आपको revision करना आसान रहे. It should be easy for you to revise, so try to give them the same color or something. It's always easy for you to track them. And I want you people not to lose the track with that. When I'm saying submental lymph node, इसके आगे की story खुद सोचो. The tip of the tongue, floor of the mouth, lower gums, all this part here, it is all draining to submental lymph node. You know the story again. Submental lymph node. Some of the submental lymph node drains into submandibular. They drain to submandibular also, but they drain into which one? They go into the jugulo-omohyoid. Jugulo-omohyoid goes into the jugular trunk goes into the lymphatic duct. You know the story beyond this. Now I want you to draw a line which will be passing like this from the forehead to the center of the eye like this, and just leave the lower part of the auricle. I'm just drawing a line which is leaving the lower part of the auricle, and leaving that lower part of the auricle, just highlight this area. First of all, this area here, which is including the central part of forehead, including the medial angle of the eye, cheek BC में आ गया, nose BC में आ गया, anterior part of nose I should say. Then upper lip is there. Angle of the mouth. This diagram will refrain you from mugging up this topic. It will help you understand it, not mugging up here. And I'm using a different color here for this part here. That is the lateral part of the forehead, lateral angle of the eye, outer surface of the auricle. That is auricle का outer surface. Only in the upper part, not the lower part. Lobule छोड़ देना. Leave the lobule part only in the upper part. There we go. This is going to make it easy for us. Now, let me go with this one first. This portion, what portion is that? If I just it's a central part of forehead. Diagram में दिख रहा है, but still there are some few things which are needed to write. Medial angle of eye, then anterior part of nose and nasal cavity. But देखो, why I'm saying anterior part of nasal cavity? Again, if you go back to the chapter we discussed the nasal cavity, whether it is the lateral wall of the nose or the medial septum, हमने हमेशा बोला कि the lymphatic drainage of the nose, anterior part of the nose, lateral wall of the nose or septum, it drains into submandibular, and posterior part drains into retropharyngeal. We will see that retropharyngeal भी आएगा. So anterior part of the nose, whatever nose that you can see from outside, what I can see from outside this nose, the lateral wall of the nose or medial septum here, the anterior part of the entire nose or nasal cavity is draining into the submandibular lymph node only. What else? Cheek, as visible here, cheek, angle of mouth, upper lip, of course, upper lip including filter and all, upper lip, and something which I should add here, that is, जो मैंने दिखाया इस diagram के अंदर, that is anterior two-third of tongue. Anterior two-third of tongue, they are all draining into which one? They are draining into the submandibular lymph node, which is here on the side here. Submandibular. Draining into the submandibular lymph node. Let me go with this highlighter here, there we have it. Submental done beta, submandibular done. और पीछे आते हैं. What lymph node here? Parotid lymph node. The third area which I have highlighted here is for the parotid only. Alright, it's better if you write it down because something regarding the auricle is very important to take care of. So this portion is also going to drain downward into the parotid. What part of that is included? It is the upper part of forehead, that is the lateral part basically. Upper part of the forehead, obviously adjoining scalp also. Upper part of the forehead and scalp. Temporal region. Look at the diagram, you can see the temporal region is also there in it. Temporal region. What else? Upper part of the lateral surface of auricle. Auricle का upper part of lateral surface of auricle. तो ये गलती नहीं करना, just be careful. Only lateral surface of auricle, not the medial surface. Only the outer surface, this surface here. Upper part of lateral surface. This is the medial surface. Inner surface is not going to drain into it. Inner surface is going to drain into the lymph node which are at the back here. If I'm talking about the parotid receives the lymph from here. Parotid receives the lymph from here. The posterior auricle, or you can say this mastoid lymph node, will receive the lymph from the posterior side here. So it's the what surface? It's the lateral surface of the auricle, upper part, and that to lateral surface of auricle, the one which I've highlighted here. Okay. Also the anterior wall of external auditory canal. External auditory canal रहेगा, उसका anterior wall. I'm not drawing anything that becomes confusing. Just writing here. Anterior wall of external auditory canal. Again, it makes sense, beta. Parotid lymph node and mastoid lymph. If you compare, which one is anterior? Parotid is anterior. So external auditory canal की anterior wall, mastoid lymph. External auditory canal की posterior wall will drain into which one? Mastoid. जो आगे है anterior, जो पीछे है वो posterior. So anterior wall of external auditory canal, and obviously as you can see the lateral angle of eye. Lateral angle of eye. All this lymph from this region, the lymphatics are going to drain to which one? They are going to drain to the parotid lymph node. They are going to drain to the parotid group of lymph nodes. Parotid lymph nodes are present on the parotid gland or inside the parotid gland also. All are inside the parotid gland. So submental lymph node, I don't have to tell you the location, but submental lymph node are present in the submental triangle. Exactly here. Submandibular lymph nodes are in relation to the submandibular gland. They are located very, very close relation to the submandibular gland. Parotid lymph node are present on or in the parotid gland, on the surface of parotid gland, and sometimes inside the parotid gland also. The parotid lymph node here. So I hope this picture clears you about the lymphatic drainage into these three here. Now coming to the posterior part, it's very easy, guys. If you look at the posterior part, lymph node which is present here, what is that? That is the mastoid. Mastoid group of lymph node is present exactly in relation to the mastoid process, where the sternocleidomastoid is attached, and occipital lymph node is present in the apex of posterior triangle gland. So for something which I don't have to draw the diagram, but you can understand it by yourself, that mastoid lymph node, the mastoid lymph node will receive the lymph from where? What is that? I said which surface of the auricle? The medial surface, or you can call it the cranial surface. एक ही बात है. They call it medial. Medial surface of, once again, medial surface of upper part of auricle. Lower part of नहीं है. Medial surface of upper part of auricle. So there is something very, very interesting coming up. You will see that. Medial surface of upper part of auricle. Adjoining scalp. मैं ये पूरा चैप्टर आपके लिए एक बार quick revision करूँगा last में. Adjoining scalp. The scalp of that part is also draining there. And which part of the external auditory canal? Which wall? Posterior wall of external auditory canal. Posterior wall of external auditory canal is also going to drain there. Okay? So that is a mastoid lymph node. Obviously, location is it's very close to the mastoid process. It is present superficial to sternocleidomastoid. Just an additional note here. It is present superficial to sternocleidomastoid. Here, the mastoid process, close to the mastoid process. And finally, occipital lymph node. Occipital lymph node. Location क्या बेटा? They are present in the apex of occipital triangle. You already know, not suboccipital, occipital, the posterior triangle of neck. They are present very close to the apex of occipital triangle, and these occipital lymph nodes are simply receiving the lymph from where? From the posterior part of scalp. Just to bother you guys, posterior part of scalp will go into which one? Occipital lymph node. Occipital lymph node, if you remember, they were directly draining into which one? Supraclavicular. नीचे के सीधा supraclavicular lymph node में drain कर रहे. They were draining into the supraclavicular lymph node. Very pericervical collar, which I said is pericervical collar, we have some displaced lymph node present in the up base also, which is not very important, but they have some displaced lymph node in the neck also, which are slightly important here. Now, pericervical collar is outer ring, isn't it? You understand? The pericervical collar is outer ring. So, अगर इसके कोई lymph node नीचे neck में present हो, if you have a displaced lymph node of the pericervical collar in the neck, they are also superficially placed. So, we have some superficial lymph node on the side of the neck, we call them superficial cervical, and some are present in the anterior part of the neck, we call them anterior cervical. Okay. Now, I have a question for you, and let me see that if you are able to answer this question to me, guys. I have a question, and I really want you to use your brain and try to answer it. Let me put the question. Listen to this carefully. Pericervical collar is having displaced lymph node present in the neck, and they are present in relation. They are present on the lateral side and they are present on the anterior side. Then my question will come. Displaced lymph nodes of pericervical collar. Displaced lymph node of pericervical collar. They are two. One we have superficial cervical. One we have superficial cervical lymph node, and then we have anterior cervical lymph node. Now, guys, my question is: if these are displaced pericervical lymph node, superficial cervical lymph node are present on the side of the neck, and anterior cervical are present in the anterior part of the neck. Which vein they will be in close relation? Come on. 1 and 2. 1 is in relation to which vein, and 2 is in which relation to which vein, according to you? 1 is on the side of the neck, and 2 is in the anterior part of the neck, as the name suggests. 1 is on the side of the neck, and 2 is on the anterior part of the neck. Which vein they will be in close relation to? This one is related to the external jugular vein that is on the side of the neck, and this one is related to the anterior jugular vein which is present in the midline of the neck in front. Anterior jugular. Now, there are two anterior jugular vein which forms a jugular venous arch. That is the anterior jugular vein. So, it is external jugular vein on the side, and anterior is the anterior jugular vein. They are present in that relation here. Now, it is very, very, very easy to remember that superficial cervical lymph node will receive lymph from where? I'm going to give you one hint, and there's again a question for you guys. Superficial cervical lymph node, which is present just superficial to sternocleidomastoid in relation to external jugular vein, it is receiving the lymph from where? Whenever you think of superficial cervical lymph node, इसके जो afferents हैं, the lymph which is going to come into it, you think about the superficial cervical lymph node. मैं hint दे रहा हूँ, and I want the answer from you guys. Superficial cervical lymph node is in close relation to what vein? External jugular vein. Now think of which nerve is in close relation to external jugular vein. Now, think like this: if the lymph node is present along the external jugular vein, and the nerve in relation to the external jugular vein is great auricular nerve, whatever great auricular nerve was supplying, the same area is going to come down and drain to this lymph node. That's easy to remember. So great auricular nerve was going and supplying what? Lobule of the ear. And you can see in this picture in this diagram, we haven't discussed the lobule. We left the lobule of the ear. Lobule of the ear, angle of the mandible, lower part of parotid. Okay? All this lymph from this region here, from this lower part here, is going to come into the superficial cervical lymph node. So the superficial cervical lymph node, they are receiving the lymph from the angle of mandible, lobule of ear, and lower part of parotid. Think of external, just think of great auricular nerve. Great auricular nerve जहाँ पे supply कर रहा है, from the same region, the lymph is coming down to the superficial cervical lymph node. And let me use the word S for the superficial cervical lymph node. I have to tell you something here. I'll be using the word S for the superficial cervical lymph node. What is the other one? Another one is anterior cervical. Anterior cervical lymph node, they are receiving the lymph, very simple, from the entire anterior triangle of neck. पूरा anterior triangle of neck, carotid triangle and all that. So the structures in there, they are going to the anterior cervical lymph node. Let me use the alphabet A for it. These are superficial group of lymph node. Displaced pericervical collar. S is for the superficial cervical and A is for this anterior cervical. Now, why I wanted to tell you this is because I want to tell you that where they're going to drain here. Superficial, let me draw the superficial here. I'm writing S for superficial. That is going to drain into the supraclavicular. And anterior cervical is here. I'm writing A for the anterior cervical. That is also going to drain into what? Supraclavicular. Now this diagram is complete here. So displaced pericervical collar, that is superficial cervical lymph node and anterior cervical lymph node. You already know where the lymph is coming from. Ultimately, it is not going into jugulodigastry, not going into jugulovomoid. It is going to what? Supraclavicular lymph node. Superficial cervical sevi or anterior cervical sevi. Okay. So the major part of it is over. Now let me take you to the inner circle now. But outer circle and everything is that was the main thing. Coming to inner circle. Inner circle के lymph nodes जो हैं, they are present around in here. So we have lymph node present in front of the trachea, we pretracheal, in front of the larynx, we prelaryngeal. On the side of the trachea we call it paratracheal, and behind we have what? Retropharyngeal. So inner circle के अंदर the lymph node which are present, are pretracheal lymph nodes, prelaryngeal lymph nodes, paratracheal. I'll tell you more about them. Paratracheal lymph nodes, and then one very important group is retropharyngeal. Okay. I'm going to take all these three together and this one separately here. Prelaryngeal lymph node. First of all, where is the location here? The laryngeal lymph node located in front of the larynx. Conus elasticus. Remember that membrane, guys? Picovocal membrane. Conus elasticus. So it is present. These lymph nodes are present in front of conus elasticus. Then I'm telling you, nobody is going to ask you the location of these lymph nodes. But again, to understand the lymphatic drainage of the entire head and neck, this chapter is really, really going to go the long way. आप इस chapter को पढ़ने के बाद, when you revise the previous part, whenever you revise the palatine tonsil or pharynx or larynx or whatever, you find it really, really helpful to understand कि अच्छा यार lymphatic drainage automatically यहाँ जाना चाहिए. So that idea will be fixed in your head. Because we discussed the blood supply with some logics here. Venous drainage, again, it makes some sense here. Lymphatic drainage of head and neck in the beginning doesn't make any sense here. But after this part, now you will understand, okay, lymph is coming from the outer circle or inner circle and ultimately going into the deep cervical lymph node. That's prelaryngeal beta. Sorry. Then we have pretracheal. Now, where we expect to see the pretracheal lymph node, which pretracheal lymph node are present just above the isthmus of the thyroid gland. Just above isthmus of thyroid gland, isthmus of the thyroid gland. And paratracheal, when you say the word paratracheal lymph node, which paratracheal lymph node are present on the side of the trachea. When you think of the trachea, what is behind the trachea? Esophagus. So they're basically present on the side, in between the trachea and esophagus on the side. What is the nerve over there? Recurrent laryngeal nerve. So they're in very, very close relation to recurrent laryngeal nerve. So they're present between trachea and esophagus. They're present between the trachea and esophagus along recurrent laryngeal nerve. So if somebody wants to remove the paratracheal lymph node, you first have to divide this recurrent laryngeal nerve carefully, and then only the removal can be done. Now, as I said, I will be discussing these three together because there is something common here. All these lymph nodes here, they are receiving their afferents. The afferent lymph into this paratracheal, pretracheal, and prelaryngeal. It's coming from where? It is coming from the larynx. It is coming from trachea. Now, trachea. It is coming from the esophagus. It is coming from the thyroid gland. One was present just above the isthmus only, the thyroid gland. So that afferent जो lymph है, the lymph from the larynx, trachea, esophagus, thyroid gland, that is predominantly draining into this pretracheal, paratracheal, and prelaryngeal lymph nodes here. Efferent, बताने की जरूरत है. Efferent, all these, efferent from all of them will go into neighboring deep cervical lymph node. जो भी उनके पास होगा, whatever neighboring deep cervical lymph node you have, they will drain into it. Whether it is jugular-digastric or jugular-omohyoid, they will drain into that. The neighboring deep cervical lymph node, they will drain into. But last out of this lecture, an important thing that is a bit of retropharyngeal. Retropharyngeal lymph node. Now this is important because, as I said in the recent discussion, we've been talking about this retropharyngeal lymph nodes over and over again. So let me try to. First of all, as the name suggests, retropharyngeal lymph node location क्या होगा? Location of retropharyngeal lymph node is obviously in what space? In the retropharyngeal space. They are located in the retropharyngeal space. Important thing is where the afferent is coming from. Now, whenever you think of the retropharyngeal lymph node, you got to start thinking like the posterior part of nasal cavity, posterior part of oral cavity, and their connections. आपको सारी picture एक साथ ही clear हो जाएगी. It's very very easy, guys. Start thinking from the posterior part of the nasal cavity, posterior part of the oral cavity, and the connections where they are connected, like they are connected through eustachian tube to the middle ear cavity. So if you try to remember that way, that's the easiest way to remember that retropharyngeal lymph node में lymph कहाँ से आएगा. Retropharyngeal lymph node के afferents are coming from pharynx, palatine tonsil. I told you palatine tonsil is draining into the jugulo-digastric also, but into the retropharyngeal as well. Mainly into the jugulo-digastric, but yes, some into the retropharyngeal as well. Palatine tonsil. What else? उसी part को सोचो. Palate, very soft palate. Posterior part of nasal cavity. Entire nasal cavity में दो चीज सोचिए बेटा. Anterior part of nasal cavity, this portion of the lymph node, which is including the anterior part of nasal cavity, goes into submandibular. Posterior part of nasal cavity into retropharyngeal. Posterior part of nasal cavity, and then think of the connection. Connection किसके through है? Auditory tube, that is eustachian tube. Eustachian tube is connected to what? To the tympanic cavity, that is the middle ear cavity. Tympanic cavity, that is middle ear cavity. And what sinus? What is sinus at the back here? The sphenoidal. एक चीज भूल बताता हूँ. Sphenoidal and posterior ethmoidal air sinus. Sphenoidal and posterior ethmoidal air sinus. What about other sinuses? What about the maxillary sinus, the frontal sinus, and the anterior part of ethmoid sinus? Frontal sinus is here. Ethmoidal sinus are here. Maxillary sinus are here. And this area, guys, this area was draining into which one? Submandibular lymph node. So please, you just go back and you can add this to your notes also. ये जो submandibular के बारे में लिखा है सब कुछ है about all this submandibular lymph node. Apart from this, it is also receiving the lymph from where? From the frontal, from the maxillary, and anterior ethmoidal air sinuses. Anterior ethmoidal air sinuses. Think of this area, obviously. This area, ये सारा area जो submandibular drain कर रहा है, तो so all the sinuses also. But the posterior ethmoidal air sinus and sphenoidal, they are at the back. That means retro. Retro कहाँ पे? Retropharyngeal lymph nodes. So posterior part of the nasal cavity, posterior part of the oral cavity, the palatine tonsil, the soft palate, the pharynx, the eustachian tube, the middle ear cavity, ये सब बेटा किसमें जा रहे हैं? Retropharyngeal में. आगे सोचिए, retropharyngeal will drain into what? Retropharyngeal lymph node will drain into the neighboring deep cervical lymph node. That has to be the jugulo-digastric or jugulo-omohyoid. So this is about. And just to complete this thing, that efferent goes into what? Efferent goes into the upper deep cervical lymph node. कौन सा upper deep cervical? Jugulo-digastric lymph node. Jugulo-digastric lymph node. This is the story about the lymphatic drainage. Waldeck lymphatic ring, बेटा बताइए आपको. I don't have to tell you that Waldeck lymphatic ring is about all these lingual tonsillitis. Waldeck lymphatic ring. Sometimes you get a very small short note question on this. Waldeck lymphatic ring is including of the tonsils, that is pharyngeal tonsils, which are in the root of the nasopharynx, that is pharyngeal tonsils. Then the tubal tonsils, which are present at the opening of the eustachian tube. Those are tubal tonsils. Then obviously the main one, these are the palatine tonsils. And then posterior one third of tongue is having so many lymphoid tissue in it, that is the lingual tonsils. So this entire ring of the lymphatic tissue, submucosal lymphatic tissue, is called as the Waldeck lymphatic ring. This Waldeck lymphatic ring is present basically just below the submucosa, just below the mucosa only, submucosal here. So they basically prevent any infection which is going from the outside. Usually lymphatics which are present inside the lymph node, which are present inside, they are fighting against the infection which is there in the blood, or which is there deep inside. But oral cavity, nasal cavity, they are exposed to so much of infection every day. Okay? So the lymphatic which is present in the Waldeck lymphatic ring is directly taking care of those infections which are coming from the outside to an extent. This is called the Waldeck lymphatic ring, which is composed of the pharyngeal tonsil, tubal tonsil, palatine tonsil, and lingual tonsils. So guys, the main idea for this chapter was to make you understand first of all that how exactly the lymphatic drainage is done, where it is done, and what exactly is the pathway here. So a very quick just run through. So we said lymphatic drainage. First, we have pericervical column, that is the outer ring here. Inner ring, which is present around the respiratory passage and the the esophagus, pharynx. You can say that is the inner ring. And more inside, we have a submucosal lymphatic tissue collection, which is a Waldeck lymphatic ring, right? Whether it is inner ring, whether it is outer ring, or it is a lymphatic ring, ultimately सबको drain का करना है into vertical chain of lymph node, and that vertical chain of lymph node is present along the internal jugular vein, and we call it a deep cervical lymph node. Two types of deep cervical lymph node. We have jugulo-digastric and jugulo-omohyoid mainly. Jugulo-digastric location between the posterior belly of digastric, between the facial vein and internal jugular vein. Whereas when you look at this jugulo-omohyoid, Mr. John is present where? It is present superficial to the internal jugular vein, just above the intermediate tendon of the omohyoid. Then we have some displaced lower deep cervical lymph node in the supraclavicular triangle. So the name simply supraclavicular lymph node. Supraclavicular lymph nodes. Jugulo-digastric drains into the jugulo-omohyoid. Jugulo-omohyoid forms a jugular trunk, which also receives a supraclavicular directly into it or indirectly. Then we said about the pericervical column, the outer circle, with a submental, submandibular, parotid, mastoid, and occipital. Quickly, submental lymph node is present in the submental triangle. They are basically present between the two anterior belly of digastric. Submental lymph node. Submental lymph node receives the lymph from where? From here. Where I'm putting my two fingers here. There is the chin, central part of the lower lip, incisors which are in relation to the lower gums which are in relation to the lower incisors, tip of the tongue, floor of the mouth. ये सब जाके इसमें drain कर रहे हैं submental. And then you can see this picture that submental is draining into the jugulo omohyoid lymph node. हालांकि let me just add something to this. Some of the submental lymph node drains into submandibular also. आप एक arrow बना सकते हो if you want. Some lymph from the submental lymph node goes into the submandibular also. That is also right. Okay. Submandibular lymph node is draining from where? Think of the diagram here. It is receiving the lymph from where? From the forehead, central part of forehead, medial angle of the eye, nose, anterior part of the nasal cavity. पूरा nose आपको बाहर दिख रहा है. Anterior part of nasal cavity, cheek, upper lip, angle of the mouth. Okay. So this is all draining into, and sorry, this what do you say? Yeah, this is all draining into what? Into the submandibular lymph node. Then comes the parotid lymph node. Parotid lymph node is draining the lymph from the outer part of the auricle, from the temporal region, right? From the anterior wall of the external auditory canal, and obviously the adjoining part of the what do you say? The scalp also goes into the parotid lymph node. Parotid goes into the jugular digastric. Occipital lymph node itself, it is receiving the lymph from the scalp, posterior part of the scalp, but that drains into where? Into the supraclavicular lymph node there. Displaced pericervical collar or outer circle is what? That is the superficial cervical lymph node which are present along the external jugular vein, and some are present along the internal jugular vein. वो displaced part है, and they are also ultimately draining into the supraclavicular lymph node only. Inner ring beta we have prelaryngeal, which is in front of the conus elasticus, pretracheal, just above the isthmus. We have paratracheal, which is on the side of the trachea and esophagus along the recurrent laryngeal nerve. Retropharyngeal, that is behind the pharynx. Retropharyngeal is the important one to remember here. Retropharyngeal, think of posterior part of the nasal cavity, think of posterior part of the oral cavity. जिसमें tonsil भी आ जाएगा, palate भी आ जाएगा, pharynx भी आ जाएगा, eustachian tube, middle ear cavity.